To be quite honest, I'm very proud of creating these podcast episodes. The conversations are always very informative, entertaining, and a lot of fun, at least for me personally, which is basically why I decided to make the podcast episodes publicly available. Before, they were only available on my Patreon, but now I will release them every 2 weeks, and since I have been doing these for many episodes, I actually still got a huge backlog of episodes. Furthermore, I am currently recording new episodes on a weekly basis. You can get an early access to the audio versions and also an exclusive video version of my podcast over a month in advance. Here are a few great clips of the recent episodes with Tom from PackHacker, dannypacks, JB Outside, Aaron from Nomads.Nation, JT from Carryology, just to name a few. What are your 3 nitpicks or pet peeves on bags or EDC that you dislike the most?
Oh. What is it? Okay, here's one thing that annoys me. You know, in like the Evergoods CHZ 22 and 26, are you familiar with that bag? It's a great pack, and like Evergoods do really good stuff, but the only way to access the laptop compartment is underneath the flap. So the quick access pouch on the outside, which is really handy, and I think you have to have in a bag, it's into the space that folds over the top of the laptop sleeve.
Yeah, it overlaps a little bit, right?
That's right. So if that section is full of your sunglasses and your keys and your AirPods, and you want to go in to get your laptop out, you've sort of got to like lift it up out of the way and then reach in with your other hand to get the laptop out.
That's a good point.
And so that's kind of something, and Evergoods aren't the only manufacturers to do that or something similar, but that's something that I dislike because I can see what they're trying to do, but in the execution, they've created another problem which they haven't solved.
Yeah, that's true.
And I guess a similar thing sometimes happens with external water bottle pockets where to use them, they really eat into the main compartment of the bag.
They bulk into the main compartment, kind of, right?
That would be my pet peeve, would be non-independent capacity pockets.
Yeah.
Which is such a nerdy thing to say.
I was looking over your channel and looked at all of the thumbnails, and I noticed a lot of bags are targeted to, let's say, outdoor lifestyle, and they are predominantly black bags. My question to you is, if you could create your own favorite bag, what style/use case would it be? For instance, would it be office, outdoor, or travel? And what color would it be besides black?
You knew I was going to say black for the favorite. I
know.
Get that. I get that question a lot. All my family and friends that are fans of the channel, they're like, "Man, why do you review so many black bags? They all look the same." But I'm like, I love them. I genuinely love the way that they look. It's so. But
hold on, it can't be black and it can't be gray.
Dang, you read my mind. I think I'm always looking for bags that are like multi-purpose. I think that like Evergoods really resonated with their sort of like crossover. I mean, that's in the name of the pack and their websites, like the crossover pack. So it can work for the office, for city, for going into the hike. So I love the idea. It's always funny, like as reviewers, we're on the hunt for that perfect one bag
exactly.
But I'll always be reviewing new bags, which is a great problem to have. But I'll never, have that one bag. So I think that would be sort of the style, kind of like more minimal and crossover. So I like tactical bags, but I wouldn't want something like that tactical. And I love, the sleek kind of tech looking bags, but that can be a little weird to go on a hike with or something, or it might even stand out, right? I know you talk a lot about travel safety in your videos, and that's something that I'm mindful of, right? Is like, I don't want that, something like Peak Design bags, which just look super sleek, which is great. But when I'm abroad, I'm like, oh, people probably know I have a lot of camera gear in this bag. Like,
so true. So yeah, I mean, you said like, okay, the multi-purpose bag, but are you leaning more into a bag that is more dedicated for traveling, or would you rather make a bag that is more suited for the office, because I feel like if it's a multi-purpose bag, it probably is like 30 liter if it's for traveling. But if it's a multi-purpose bag for work, it's probably a little bit smaller. Which kind of way are you leaning towards if you would make your favorite bag?
I think my ideal size is like 24 to 25 liter, or let me say 22 to 25. And for a long time, I was really into like the expandable and compressible bags, which are really cool, you know, like the Knackpack or the Nomadic, because it seems like the best of both worlds. But I've gotten really into like the rabbit hole of trying to pack everything into a 24 or 25 liter bag, and like being able to use literally for my day to day or for travel. I did a trip not too long ago where I just packed everything in a bag that fit under the seat. And that is life changing. If you travel that way, like not having to stress about finding an overhead space or anything. So that would be kind of my ideal bag. Like that 25 liter size is what I feel comfortable with. Like I can pack it out with like a packing cube. I can, especially with some of the newer clothes or, you know, jeans, something you can rewear. I mean, you can travel for quite a long time with a 25 liter bag if you're creative.
So what kind of features would you include? Let's do the difficult one first. What's color? What's the color?
I think one that I've really loved recently is kind of like the wax canvas brown, like a darker brown.
Oh yeah, that's classy.
You know, it's interesting because we had this conversation actually on my podcast where we talked about like what nitpicks do you have for bags? Like, is it fit locks? Like, why is that? You know, what's the purpose, right? And everything should have a purpose. And when it comes to products and things that I use, I don't personally have any real nitpicks, just because from my point of view, I think that every person's different. So as a seller for products, you know, we have to maintain like a neutral viewpoint for products. So as long as it's not something ridiculous, like it's wrapped in saran wrap or something and you can't open it, but you have to, or some elaborate way to open something, or the product is nice on the outside but cheap on the inside, right? The person who designed it had a certain person in mind when they designed it. So we just feel like if it is reasonable and it looks nice and it's designed well and it's, you know, high quality, then it's someone out there, it fits someone's purpose out there, you know, someone's setup.
Do you still like packing cubes? Truth to be told, I'm a little bit torn. I'm a very big advocate of using packing cubes, but lately, especially considering the comfort to carry bags, I was actually wondering if I should keep continuing to use packing cubes just because the fact they do add a little bit of grams and a little bit of bulk to all of the stuff that you're packing. Obviously, you can compress everything, but since you compressed everything, you get into the habit of, I still have some space left, so I can pack more. So that's why I was actually thinking to myself, should I continue using packing cubes?
I personally love packing cubes because I just love keeping everything organized. But I do know what you mean. And I actually ran into this. We were doing our Digital Nomad packing list version 3. And with all the items, we get like a nice full packing list for people to look at. And we definitely don't expect people to like buy every single item, right? Or get every single item. People should think of it more as like ideas of what you could pack, especially for like the miscellaneous accessories and things like that. And of course, everybody's clothing weighs a different amount. But I was trying some like lighter weight packing cubes. I was thinking about no packing cubes. And like I just ended up with the Peak Design packing cubes again, which are like a little bit heavier, but like I just love them so much. Like they fit so well into bags. They're durable. The material is very satisfying to feel. They've got a very premium look and feel to them. And for me, it's worth that extra weight. We're also very intentional about what we're packing. So I'm not really like, I'm going to like add more stuff. Like we have it like on spreadsheets and have the weights and things like that. But yeah, I can see how that's an issue, right? Because like the more optimized and compressed things are, the easier it is to start jamming things inside of it, right? That's my 2 cents. I just think that the organization outweighs the extra weight for me personally.
How did you get into bags? So basically you are into EDC and then you got further into bags?
It really was like EDC was more like a necessity because I had to bring so much stuff with me to work. It wasn't like I didn't go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, collecting knives and, stuff like that. It was more just like, no, I have like a ton of crap I need to bring to work. Mostly cables. I also had like one of the iFixit Pro kits.
Oh, cool.
So I had to take apart like a lot of laptops and stuff like that. And those things are awesome for it. Like that's so, so I had like, a ton of stuff to bring to work. So I was just like, all right, like at the time I had like an old, like hip messenger bag, like that I had from high school, that I used to carry textbooks in, but it really wasn't cutting it. I remember distinctly going to a brewery that's local to Chicago and seeing someone with a Chrome Citizen.
Oh, cool.
And the whole panel was the Chicago flag. I was just like, holy crap. Like one, I'd never heard of Chrome before. This is, 15 years ago at this point. So I started hunting online. So they had one that was completely black stars, black bag. I was just like, done. Like, I don't care. And like, I remember that being like a tough decision. I was like, man, this is like $250. Do I really want to spend this much on a bag? And like looking back on it now, I'm just like, oh, you sweet summer child.
The reason why I don't include pricing in my reviews, because I paid for my GR0, I think it was like 80 euros shipping and 50 euros custom fees.
Wow.
So that's why I don't include pricing, because I'm telling everyone, hey, I have no idea how much shipping will be for your country, and especially no idea how much custom fees is. That could affect the price of the bag or the item that you want to buy immensely.
Yeah, and
so I don't.
And also, prices change. Like I remember I did some boundary supply reviews very early on my YouTube channel, and I included the prices, and they've like doubled their prices since then. Like the Errants, I think, used to cost like $160, and now it costs like $250 or something. Not quite doubled, but exaggerating. But so I also try to keep prices out, or I mention as of recording, this is the price, but it could change. And like you said, the shipping and everything. But back to the GoRuck example, even though I've never reviewed a GoRuck product, I emulate what they've built. I admire it because they are a premium price point, and they have a cult-like following.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle, and that's what I'm trying to bring to my side of things as well.
The first thing I want to mention is like the most recent things I've bought that I've been totally happy with. So that's something I'm going to ask you after in a minute. Basically, I came down to like two things. One of which is my my Gerber Dime multi-tool. And this is for my everyday carry. This is the tool that I carry. This is the only knife that I carry these days. And I've gone through
the first
Leatherman.
One that I see that used that.
Really, yeah, I really like it. I have had three now. And for some people that would be terrible, but one of them broke. I have to own up to that. But it was maybe 6 years old when it broke, and I was using it a lot. And I wrote to Fiskars, which is the company in Europe that distributes Gerber or owns Gerber, and they said, "Yeah, we'll send you another one, easy peasy."
Okay,
and then
that's cool.
And then the second one I accidentally took into an airport, and they took it away from me, which is my fault, and there's no brainer. And so I bought a new one of these at the start of this year. After Christmas, and because it's great, the size and the tool selection and the functionality for me works really well. It fits my needs. And then the flip side of that, something that I had never had before, but that I needed to upgrade and have been totally happy with, is a new headlamp, the Nightcore NU33 headlamp. And I'm using this for running, and I'm using it for hiking, and the feature set and the build on it and the user interface are all excellent for me. So I'm going to interrupt the question and say, what's the last thing you bought that you've been totally happy with?
In terms of traveling, though, I have just a few rough guidelines and then a few like concrete tips you can apply right now. But when I pack, I got to differentiate purpose from minimal. So I would say minimal is a subset of purpose, right? If your goal objective is to pack as light as possible, then what you proposed earlier makes a lot of sense, where, you lay everything out, everything you think you need, and then chop half of it. And that's your loadout. So packing minimal and like being as light as possible, that people like traveling like that. But for others, there's certain ways to work around it, where I more personally want to do like what I need, right? And so if, for example, I end up with 2 bags, fine. Fortunately, I have the means to check bags in. I'm not worried about keeping everything on my backpack, on my back, and that's it. I'm okay with having a roller. I'm okay with having more stuff, as long as my life isn't hampered when I get to my destination, right? Yeah. If I find that it's really inconvenient to pack only 3 sets of clothes for a 2-week trip and I'll have to do laundry and I'll have to make sure I wash, sure, that's only a few kilograms on my back, but I'd have to really like make sure I clean, make sure I stay on top of it. If I wanted to go to a nice dinner, or recently we went to Hawaii and we wanted to do a family photo shoot, right? I don't want to wear the same raggedy shirt for that as I did when I got on the plane, right? So it again boils down to purpose, right? What are you doing on that trip? What do you need to do on that trip? What do you want to do? Pack accordingly.
Yeah, totally
right?
Makes sense. Yeah, you never really know what's right, what's wrong, and I mean you can even see it in movies. I love 80s movies, right? I love 80s movies. I have so many favorite 80s movies because, and I just noticed that a couple of months ago, I like them because it's so clear cut. You know who the bad guy is. You know who the good guy is. There is an end, and good guy has to fight the bad guy, or the love story is quite easy. There is the nerd, there's the jock, there's the person of interest. And in today's movies, I'm a Marvel fan. The last big Marvel film, Endgame and Infinity Wars, where you had this villain, you probably understood why the villain is, in air quotes, right. You understand his position, why he thinks whatever he is doing is correct. Right. And suddenly that movie becomes so complicated. You have no idea who you are actually rooting for because you're conflicted, right? That's why I think 80s movies seem so easier compared to what we nowadays have to deal with.
YouTube can be really stressful. There's so many people out there that are like, oh, YouTube, it must be so much fun. Like when you start looking at analytics and statistics and your latest video that you put 20 hours into and it bombs, and then you're grumpy at work all week because your video is doing shit. You're thinking to yourself, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I torturing myself like this?
Exactly.
I
get that. Something that I'm a little bit afraid of. I want the bag community to grow as much as they possibly can, but I also feel like the bigger it gets, the more of this kind of internet culture continuous fight, like with Android versus Apple, where there's like the diehard GoRuck fan is like battling the diehard
Xbox, PlayStation stuff.
And I feel like that. I'm kind of fearful that could happen to some point, because obviously, if you are invested heavily in an Xbox and the other one invested heavily in a Sony, obviously you are defending what you paid for, and the same will be with bags as well, especially when they are so expensive.
It's almost already starting.
Really?
Especially like within the really hardcore, like hardcore community, like the community that's really intense. Like or in the Facebook, even in the Carryology Facebook group, you'll see it. It's not mostly good vibes there. So 90% of it is good vibes, but it's kind of in that point now where it's all done jokingly. But as we all know, every joke is based in reality, right? Or in a real feeling. So, cameras have experienced this forever, right? Like Sony, Nikon, Canon, Leica. Yeah. I know Digital Rev used to make whole mockery videos based on how a Sony guy and a Canon guy would get along in a conversation or whatever. It's coming, I think, because I think at least the online community, a lot of it is still sort of in the sort of Carryology ecosystem. At least the vibes are still pretty good there. There's still some good vibes, as long as it can. It keeps its innocence as long as it can, because it's hard because eventually people just, like you said, you've got people who these days who are spending thousands of dollars on special edition bags, which if you spend that much money on a bag, you're probably going to want to defend it pretty strongly if somebody says they don't like it. So I think that at least that because we're sort of late to the party, there are a lot of precedent set on how to learn from the mistakes that those communities made and sort of grow, at least keep the positivity longer. And I hope that's kind of how it goes. So far I've seen most anything that kind of goes a little bit negative towards that way has changed pretty quick and has been pretty community controlled, and people keep the vibes themselves positive. So I think as long as that keeps going, whereas Apple versus Android is
oh, that's terrible.
It's gross to watch.
That's terrible.
It's gross to watch. So,
I don't get it. No, I get it in a way that you're heavily invested with
your money and buying those stuff, but not understanding that needs are different. I mean, with bags, for instance, bottle compartments, some people will need it, some people won't, and that's why we are more understanding in terms of that needs are different. And I feel like with phones or tech in general, I feel like people don't really get that people have different workflows, different needs and stuff like that.
These were obviously just a few small clips. Check out my podcast on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcast, so basically on any podcast app. And if you want to watch or listen to the new episodes weeks in advance, check out my Patreon. Alright, I will see you in the next videos. Thank you very much.